Welcome back to Ozarks Tonight. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought new challenges for everyday life, and the same goes for universities. With fall semester wrapping up and Missouri State's graduation happening tomorrow, we're taking a look at how MSU has dealt with the pandemic on campus during the fall semester. MSU's Director of Safety, David Hall, joins us to give an update on where cases currently stand. David, thank you so much for being here.
Well, welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, David, I mentioned that the challenges that COVID-19 presented this semester. What were some of the trends that you noticed?
You know, what we saw was in the very early stages of the semester, as students came onto campus, we saw pretty significant growth in cases. And then as they kind of got into their, small groups, then we saw that significantly decrease by the middle of September, and then remained fairly steady. Towards the end, we saw a little bit of a bump, but not nearly what we saw in the very early stage of the semester. That really correlated with them moving back indoors and spending more time inside rather than having the outside activities.
Okay, so here in Missouri, many colleges made the decision not to return after Thanksgiving break. MSU chose to return to campus. What went into that decision, and have you seen a spike in cases after Thanksgiving break?
Yes, certainly. What we've said all along is we're going to follow what the data suggests and what we're seeing here locally. So again, whenever we came into the Thanksgiving season prior to that break, we were seeing that our numbers were not out of line, that we were able to manage it. And, we encourage students to use good decision making as they decided to return home, not go into large groups or large family gatherings where they might either spread it to their family back home or conversely bring it back to the campus. We increased our testing significantly and really encouraged everyone to get testing as an additional measure that maybe gave them some additional confidence, or more importantly is really pulling out those that may be asymptomatic and not knowing that they're positive and going home. And we know that that was very successful. We saw a really robust increase in the number of our tests that we did on there. We also know that the easy thing is to say is, well, we're just going to shift to online in those last 2 weeks. But we know that about 30% of our students either don't have good access to internet and technology, or that they struggle in the online format. And we felt like if our numbers simply do not suggest that we should move online, that we need to make sure that we are ensuring that they get their quality of education that they had really expected. And again, the numbers did not suggest that we should do anything different. Once they return from campus, we have seen really a slight increase, but really no different than what we were prior to Thanksgiving. But it's really somewhat early from that. So, we may be, we would just now be expecting to see an increase on that. And, that's what we're really watching for. Although, frankly, within the last few days, we've seen some increase, but it really tends to be tied to staff rather than it is students.
So you mentioned that increase. Where do cases currently stand?
As of right now, we are at, for this week, we're currently at 27. Last week, we were at 51 cases on campus. And again, that's certainly a very manageable amount about what we would expect.
So we've talked about your quarantine hotel. Do you have any plans for continuing that in the spring semester?
Yeah, we actually ended that contract back in October. We've just not had the need for it. And, currently we have 6 people that are in our quarantine housing, and we've got 2 that are in our isolation housing. So, and that's really what we've been seeing is we've tended to have less than, 15 people, throughout the majority of the semester. So we did not do that. Now for the spring, our big focus as students return to campus to make sure that we don't see a big increase like what we did in August with the events that's going on within our community. We want to maintain those levels to where that we're not contributing anything to the community spread. And certainly as we've looked at our numbers throughout the semester is we've been right in line with what the community has, on the percentage of our population that have been infected. It really very much tracks on par with what we've seen within our community. And that's really what we've seen with our staff. If they've, reported where they become positive, it's almost always it's a community tied spread, or typically it's in the living situation to where they've got it from either close family or friends, and they know where that's come from. So because of that, now we're prepared and we have adequate numbers of housing, and we're certainly ramping up our plans to make sure that we're ready for that. So whenever students return to campus, that we would be prepared to be able to address that.
So what are some challenges that you're expecting for the spring?
Probably the biggest thing that we see is fatigue. We've been in this for a long time, and we know that everybody's ready to get back to quote unquote normal or somewhat a normalcy, and yet we know that we can't let our defenses down. So we've got to be very aggressive about our mask wearing and compliance with that, and making sure that everyone has. And I will say is we were concerned about how would students react to that, and would there be a lot of pushback in the fall semester, and frankly we never did see that. You would see just one or two here, but really it has been, it's just been a non-issue with that. But the social distancing is the other thing. Now, the thing I feel better about is as they're coming back in the spring, we tend to have seen the cases have been somebody within a living area. So if they are sharing an apartment, then their roommates would catch it from them, or their close group of friends. The good thing about whenever they come back in the spring, we've pretty much, many of those have kind of run their course through that. Now, going home, if they bring that back, if somebody does, we know that's a risk. But, I'm optimistic we won't see that in the spring. The other thing is we're going to have a very aggressive testing as they move back into their on-campus housing in the spring that we weren't able to do in the fall, frankly, with the testing resources that were available then. We do have those available now, so we're really ramping up for that, so that we'll be testing all of our on-campus students as they move back in order to make sure that they're not bringing it into that. We think that's going to make a world of difference for us for this year.
And real quick before we go, graduation is happening tomorrow on Friday. What are you doing to prevent the spread of COVID?
Yeah, we've certainly, that's one of the things we've implemented a lot of protective measures. We want to make sure that everyone is wearing their mask and they're wearing it properly. We want to make sure that they're socially distant. So we've spread out all of our graduates. We've reduced the number that are in there. We've asked anyone that it's not essential to be there that they not come to that. So, for example, for the first time, we're asking our faculty is if you don't need to be there, then, we would ask that you not be there. What we're bringing it down is the city limits right now are at 50% occupancy, and we're bringing it well down below. We would expect 30%, and so we're blocking out the seating every other row, and then fogging in between each of the ceremonies, and then we spread them out in the amount of time that we have between it, so there's less interaction between those coming and going. So we've implemented a lot of measures. This is the same thing we did at our October ceremonies. One is we just reduced down the number of graduates. We're live streaming, so that a way we can encourage them to have their family members instead of coming and being there physically present, that they would do that, particularly those that are more vulnerable, and that all the graduates, that they really limit that to 6 attendees to go with them. Whereas, it was not uncommon before that, people would have 10 or 12 that would show up with graduation. So with all of that, it's going to mirror what we did in October, and we feel pretty confident that we can pull this off safely.
All right, David, thank you so much.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
We'll have more Ozarks Tonight coming up after the break.